The dynamic, the behavioral dynamic of white supremacy is analogous to a chess game. We haven't looked at it in that way before. See, we've looked at it, everybody hold hands, ring around the rosy, we're all in this together, and we found that, wait a minute, that's not what's happening. That if we understand the game of chess, where you have a white side of the chessboard and you have a black side of the chessboard, when people sit down to play chess, because I'm not talking about hating white people, I am talking about analyzing the behavior, but I'm not talking about hating them, I'm not talking about destroying white people. But I am talking about understanding this so-called game of chess. Now, if we look further at the chess game, that in the game of chess for the last 100 years, the game has been played where white always moves first. So that the white side of the chessboard is playing offense, defense. The black side of the chessboard has to play defense, offense. So I say that that's the perfect analogy to white supremacy. White supremacy has to move against non-white people for the purpose of white genetic survival, you see. And also, the game of chess is about checkmating the king. You see, with white moving offensively and then defensively, that means that the real issue in the game of chess is about the white king checkmating the black king. And I say that that is perfectly analogous to racism, white supremacy, because the primary thrust of the attack of racism, white supremacy, it's against all black people or all non-white people, but it is most specifically against the black male, because it is the black male who can cause white genetic annihilation. You see, and so the game of chess is about the white king checkmating the black king. And so I say that if we begin to say, oh, it's like the game of chess. You see, and black people say, oh, we didn't understand that. Oh, now we can play, because it's just a matter of tactics and strategy. And I go further, you know, to look at the chessboard as though each of these columns, each of the vertical columns on the chessboard, we really need 9. And if we looked at it, one column represents economics, another economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. And so you have to play on those 9 fronts simultaneously, which is just like playing chess. You don't play on just one column. You have to play and look at all of the columns at the same time. You see, and so if we now begin to say, oh, we understand the dilemma of the white minority on the planet, that they are actually operating in fear of white genetic annihilation, you see, and the intention then being to survive, white genetic survival by any necessary means, and I mean any necessary means, then black people can begin to say, oh, okay, that means that we have to have tactics and strategies for, you see, black survival and maximal development. In the presence of this continuous onslaught, we will give up completely, you see, begging and pleading, that all of that energy, like 90% of our energy as black people in this area of the world, is being spent begging and pleading. Like 90% of our energy as black people in this area of the world is being spent begging and pleading. You see, but that would be analogous to the person who is playing the black side of the chessboard begging the white side to let them win. You see, so if you were playing the black side of the chessboard and you start asking the white side to let you make some points, they ought to take you to the nearest mental hospital. That's not the way the game is played. You see, the same thing with basketball, the same thing with football.
And is that why we're back now to the Supreme Court going back and undoing?
Right, well, that, you see, I say that it's that cycle. In other words, white supremacy, you can look at it as Mr. Neely Fuller does, as, you know, having 4 phases: establishment, maintenance, expansion, and refinement. And so after you go into refinement, you have to go back to establishment.
So what do you think of the goal of equality?
Well, I think that the issue about equality, the dynamic of racism as I have analyzed it, white supremacy, is coming about because people feel unequal. You see, people feel, well, somebody else has a dominant genetic trait that can cause my genetic annihilation. And so that's the game that's on the table. And so equality, you see, you cannot establish equality when you have that dynamic going on of somebody feeling, I have to have everything, or I have to be in charge, either because I'll be genetically annihilated or because I feel genetically inadequate. I have to try to balance that out by having all of the money, all of the jobs, all of the houses, all of the things that are decent, do you see? And I can only feel balanced out if I'm looking at the people who I really look at as genetically dominant to me, if I can reduce them to a state of inferiority, and then I can say, see, I'm superior. Now that's the dilemma. And I have said, when I wrote the paper, The Cress Theory of Color Confrontation, I said the challenge to white behavioral, it's a challenge, or the challenge to white behavioral scientists, to help the white population locally and globally become comfortable with its color and its minority status in the world.
How do you do that?
Well, first of all, by talking about it. You see, but this is a topic that you cannot talk about. I mean, you should take an A and 1,000 gold stars for having, airing this kind of discussion. This is a discussion that you cannot bring out. You have to understand the game that's on the table. You see, you don't take somebody to the football field and stand them up and say play without telling them what the game is all about. You don't go to the chessboard without being taught. You see, what is the object of this game? Black parents should tell their children everything, you see, but instead of, well, I don't want to tell the child because it really is so horrible and I don't want to think about it. You see, that's incorrect.
What does that produce in a child?
Well, it's just a lack of understanding. You see, you have the child standing at the chessboard and you don't tell them what the game is all about. You don't tell them the plays that are going to come from the other side of the board. So the child is in a state of, being checkmated, or the other side keeps saying check. And so the child just stands there. I can't play this game. I don't really know what's happening. As a matter of fact, I say that black people greet each other by saying what's happening because we don't know what's going on. You see, now is the time, before we enter the 21st century, for us to fully understand exactly and specifically what white supremacy is all about, and people at all ages should know.
What should black children be told about white supremacy?
Exactly what we're talking about here. You see, and more, that white supremacy is a system of behavior evolved by a tiny minority of people on the planet who are genetic recessive to the majority, and these behaviors that oppress and hold non-white people down are for the purpose of white genetic survival. These are very unjust behavior, boys and girls, or children, you see. And we have been asking that these behaviors stop, but because they consider these behaviors to be survival necessity, they continue. So therefore, this is what we must do. You see, we must learn how to take ourselves very, very seriously. You see, we must learn how to respect ourselves. We must learn how to respect one another. You see, I say even respect white people. You see, but be aware, that's like if you're on opposite teams, baseball, basketball, football, you can respect the team that's playing against you, but know that that team is playing against you. You see, and that ultimately what we're talking about is establishing justice and peace on the planet. But this is like a war that's going on now. You see, and our responsibility is to bring justice to the planet Earth.